Hello, and welcome to this literary translation workshop. This workshop is intended for anyone who has proficiency in any two languages, at least to a degree where they would feel comfortable thinking and writing in another language. It could be any two languages, and you could be translating from any one language to the other. This workshop is really aimed at anyone who has language abilities and the interest to explore literary translation. Today, we're going to be talking a bit about what exactly literary translation is, what the important considerations are, and doing some exercises to dip our toes into it. I'd like to start by sharing a little bit about me. My name is Julia. I am an intern for the 2025 summer session of the Writer's Workout, and my first language is English, but I also speak Spanish and French and enjoy dabbling in writing and translating with these languages. A bit about translation to start. Unlike some other types of translation, literary translation isn't just about preserving meaning. It's not translating a text word for word. There's a lot more you have to think about when recreating a literary text. These are just some of the considerations that one must take into account, although the list could go on forever. For example, cultural context. When you're translating from one language to the other, the vast majority of the time, you are translating for an audience that is familiar with a different culture and perhaps not necessarily familiar with the original culture of your text, although obviously all situations vary. You might think about things that audiences from other countries or other cultures might not recognize in your text, and how to strike a balance between keeping the original meaning and reading experience of the text and making it legible for people who are exploring a text that written in a different place or different culture for the first time. Every language has different idioms. You've probably seen some silly examples of idioms that might sound super different in one language to another. When you're encountering these idioms, you might think about how to handle them, what an equivalent could be, or what would happen if you left the original in the text. There are many words without a direct translation. You also can think about things related to sound, for example, rhyme, especially in poetry, puns that might not work when they're a play on words that is reliant on how words sound, tone of the text, the kind of mood that you're communicating, a degree of lyricism, whether certain words are meant to be more poetic, they can also be more formal or informal. Accuracy, which is a big debate because, for example, you might want to try to keep things as similar to a literal translation of the original text as possible, but you also want to think about what the reading experience is that the audience is having and how to feel like it is accurate to the words in the original text, but also to the reading experience that someone reading the original text would have, and how that could be accurate to your audience. And of course, much more. Here's an example of how much these small considerations can create a different meaning in a text. We're going to take Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis, which is a novella originally written in German that follows a young man named Gregor Samsa who is transformed into something in his sleep. In this phrase, the noun literally means unclean animal not suitable for sacrifice, and it can colloquially be used to mean bug with the connotation of dirty, nasty bug, or vermin in a more general sense. The adjective can either mean very large or monstrous, which in some cases can have a similar meaning but have very different connotations. For example, something that's monstrous could have a large size, but something that is very large doesn't necessarily mean monstrous. This has been translated at least 16 different ways. Some examples of these ways are gigantic insect, monstrous vermin, monstrous cockroach, a vile insect, one of gigantic proportions, horrible vermin, and much more. All of these could be accurate to the meanings that we've established for these two words on the left-hand side. However, all of these paint a very different picture to the reader about what he's turned into and what this creature is like. For example, a gigantic insect or a giant bug are both more broad and are free of negative or positive connotations. You can leave more room for Gregor's humanity, and you're not necessarily imagining him as something scary, except for the fact that he is a human who has been transformed into a bug or an insect. You also might not have a specific bug or insect that you're picturing. It leaves a lot up to the reader. Monstrous vermin, on the other hand, the monstrous implies something quite scary, and the vermin implies something undesirable. On the other hand, vermin is even broader because vermin can refer to a lot of different kinds of unwanted animals, just like pest. And some might not even picture Gregor Samsa as an insect when reading this. On the other hand, cockroach and bedbug become much more specific, implying an image of a sort of bug that the reader might know. So, for example, all of these kind of leave different levels of broadness, narrowness, and connotations based on the way that they translate both the adjective and the verb. And these are only from 2 words. So this gives a pretty big example of how thinking about specific word choice and translation can really affect the meaning of a text. This may all seem hard or daunting, but dabbling in translation is worth it. Besides being super fun, it can make you a better writer by helping you think about word choice. And on a grander scale, reading and sharing translated writing is a great way to share perspectives from around the world and help people learn more about places that they might not be familiar with. Let's try some exercises to dip our toes into literary translation and some of the considerations that come with it. Step number 1. To set ourselves up from all of these exercises, you're going to take a few of your favorite lines from work in progress written in one language. It doesn't matter what that language is. All of these are applicable from translation from any one language into another. So neither of the languages have to be English. One of them could be. It doesn't matter which direction you're translating them into. All that matters is that you're comfortable with the original language and with the language that you're about to translate it into. You're going to look at these lines, whether they're your favorite or lines that you feel stuck on and want some more insight into, and you're going to translate them word for word in the most literal sense into another one. Don't think too much about the considerations that we've spoken about. That will come later. Just think about the most accurate literal meaning of what your words are and transform that into another language. Once you have that, we're going to start on some exercises. Feel free to pause to give yourself time to complete that and resume when you're ready. So first we're going to think about sound. You're going to take those 2 lines, go back and retranslate them with as much emphasis as possible on sound. Above all else, focus on which words sound good together, whether you want rhymes, certain repeated sounds in the sentence, or varying word lengths in your sentence, while still preserving the meaning that you intended with the original. Once you're done with this, we can move on to the next exercise. Feel free to pause for as long as you need. All right, for the second exercise, we're going to be thinking about mood and tone. What are these characters feeling and what do you want your reader to feel? For this exercise, I would recommend starting by going through your text and underlining your most evocative, important adjectives and verbs. Take each word one by one. What synonym could you use to emphasize something in the text, whether that's how the characters are feeling, how the characters perceive a situation, or how you would like the reader to feel? Retranslate your sentences while choosing words that communicate these feelings as much as possible. If it's creepy, make your verbs and adjectives creepy. If it's happy, make them jump for joy. If it's sad, make them weep. You can always think about whether you would like to focus on these adjectives and verbs or whether you would like to also rearrange the sentences, change other things that you're noticing. Take a second to translate and complete the exercise, and you can unpause whenever you're ready. For our third exercise, we're going to focus on character description. This may work well with the lines that you've chosen, or it may actually work better with a different section if you wish to do so with another word-for-word translation that you can build this exercise onto. You can think about, if you would like to choose another passage, you can think about maybe the moment that a character is introduced or a moment that's pivotal to their development where a reader is learning more about them. Go through this passage and if you would like to, circle the words that describe or reveal the most about your character. This might not just be physical appearance, even though that is an important part of learning about characters on the side of the reader, but you can think about the clues that reflect other things about your character as well. For example, do their speaker tags reflect the usual volume or tone of their voice? Do your verbs paint a picture of how this character moves? Are the colloquial phrases that they use representative of their personality, or could you do a little bit more digging to think about how those colloquial phrases might translate from one language to the other? Think about all of the clues about who this character is, using those as inspiration, but most certainly do not need to limit yourself to those, and retranslate with an eye towards bringing your character to life and making them feel as much as possible like the character that you have dreamed up. take a second to pause, and you can return whenever you've completed the exercise. All right, now we're going to bring it all together. So through these three translations, you've hopefully gained a lot of insight into how word choices affect how your text is perceived in different ways, how it sounds, how the content is being communicated, and you're ready to apply all of these different perspectives to creating a translation that you love and that feels accurate to what you're hoping to communicate. So, thinking about what you've learned, do a final retranslation of your literal translation, thinking about the balance of loyalty as you've thought about saying loyal to the original text, the sounds and how they work together, and the content, for example, communicating your character and thinking about mood and tone. Likely, all of these exercises will serve you, although there's a chance that you may have found your favorite version in one of the exercises, which is also great. We all come to our translations in different ways. Take a moment to pause while you do that and come back to the video whenever you're ready. So we're just about wrapping up, and we can think about some of the main things that we can take away about literary translation from these exercises. It's so much more than meets the eye, but it's also a lot of fun, even though there are so many different things to consider. Every translator has to make their own decisions about what loyalty and accuracy personally means to them, whether that's refusing or being hesitant to change word order or translate idioms directly, or if you want to think about loyalty mostly in terms of the reader having as similar of an experience as possible, striking a balance between the reader experience and loyalty to the original text is something that each translator has to discover and decide by themselves. Like any first draft, even when you're not translating and you're writing something for the first time, every and any decision that you make influences the sound, feel, and flow of the text. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed these exercises and that you could apply these tips to translation exercises in the future or just thinking about writing. Happy translating!